Green Bay won't be the only team calling on veteran receivers. So how does that impact the way that we view Green Bay's offseason plans? Plus, Mock Draft Monday.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. You can follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Get everything you need for gambling purposes. An awesome Final Four, for example, at BetOnline, where the game starts. Reports over the weekend had the Jets looking at, thinking about, talking about, potentially waiting on some big name receivers who could be available via trade. DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, and Deebo Samuel. What do all three of those guys have in common other than they're all really, really good? The thing that is interesting for the Packers that they have in common is they are all going into the last year of rookie contracts, which means they are all going to want to get paid and probably going to want to get Davante Adams paid, Tyreek Hill paid. Maybe not quite to that level, but something close to that level. And maybe none of those teams will be willing to do that. Maybe those guys are going to look around and go, maybe this isn't the place I want to be. Despite the fact that I've had success here, maybe it's just not a place that I want to be. That is a reasonable thing. Davante Adams essentially made that decision that he wanted to go play with his friend, wanted to go live in Las Vegas, which is hard to blame him for that. And he knew he was going to get paid in either place, so let me go to this place. These decisions are not always made purely by financial decisions, and they're not always driven purely by football situation. So if you're the Packers, you're looking around and you're seeing that these names are out there, and you're understanding part of this is because of what happened with Davante. That he said, I'm going to take matters into my own hands, and I'm only going to play in these circumstances, and I'm going to take this much money, and this is where I want to go. It's not clear that Tyreek Hill took the same approach, but clearly the Chiefs decided, I'll take my first and my second, and that's it. That's fine. If you're Seattle, if you're Tennessee, if you're San Francisco, where are you in your development, do you think? If you're Seattle, it's hard to feel like you can compete. It's hard to feel like, how can you feel like you can compete if you're Seattle? They can't. So what are you gaining by paying DK Metcalf besides a big cap hit on a really good receiver with no quarterback? Now, when you find a quarterback, it'd be nice to have some receivers. It'd be nice to have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf if and when you actually find a quarterback. But guess what? Finding a quarterback is the hardest thing in the sport to do. And before Russell Wilson, it had been a long time since they'd had one. And then the last time they had one, Matt Hasselbeck, it had been a long time before that. These things are far from guarantees. So do you want to invest your resources in a highly paid receiver, someone who is so reliant on the quarterback position when your quarterback position is so unsettled? I can understand Seattle saying, we don't want to do this. We don't want to account for this much money on the cap. I'll take a first and a third, a little bit of a discount on the Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, because DK Metcalf not quite in their level. And then you got to pay him $20+ million, whoever is going to get him. I have a trade scenario that I want to throw at you later that involves DK as part of our mock drafts Monday. AJ Brown. You go get AJ Brown. If you can get AJ Brown, pay whatever draft capital, whatever contract. AJ Brown is the perfect receiver in this offense. We've seen that because he's been in this offense, and he's just amazing. And I just don't think the 49ers are going to trade Deebo, but we'll get to Deebo in a second. If you're AJ Brown, you're looking at this Tennessee Titans situation and you're going, okay, yeah, the AFC South is not exactly, the hardest division. Houston's not very good. Jacksonville's not very good. We'll see on Indianapolis and the quarterback situation there. We'll see how that develops. Obviously, they make the move for Matt Ryan. Are you a contender? Probably a playoff team. But are you Buffalo? Are you Kansas City? And how much longer are you going to have Ryan Tannehill? There's already whispers that he's going to be out. So if you're going to get the money, why be there? Now, Nashville's a great town. Again, easy division, but certainly the harder conference. Right now, these things ebb and flow, so you don't want to make that many decisions based on that kind of stuff. But right now, that's what you're looking at. What if you could go to Green Bay and play with Aaron Rodgers? What then? Would that be something appealing? And would you be willing to say, I'm not signing in a year, trade me now, get the picks, and I'll go somewhere else? If they don't want to play there, that's the move. And maybe we are entering into an age where this just becomes the norm. We're seeing it in the NBA. Guys are signing contracts and in a year or two are going, nah. I mean, Ben Simmons just did it. Anthony Davis did it. Superstar players going, I don't really want to be here. James Harden did it. I don't know. I don't know if I want to be here. Trade me. I want to go somewhere else. I want to go play with my friends. I don't begrudge them. That's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. Now, there is, at a certain level, I do think a contract is a contract, but I understand where they're coming from on this. Again, Deebo, I don't think is going to be someone that San Francisco would trade to Green Bay, but if you're going to blow it up, if Deebo wants out, Deebo seems like he's a core part of their culture, but just the fact that the Jets are monitoring the situation leads me to believe that that's not open and shut. Now, Robert Saleh, Mike LaFleur, guys who were with Deebo, it makes it a little bit more interesting, but we don't know if Kyle Wilson is any better. Zach Wilson. Any better than Trey Lance. And I don't know why Deebo would leave that situation. That brings me back to Green Bay. And Kansas City, by the way, although, they went out and they paid big money for Marquez Valdes-Scantling. We're going to talk about that at the end of the show a little bit more. And for a team like the Packers, they're going to be the premier destination for some of these players. I don't buy the Devontae wanted out and Marquez Valdes-Scantling wanted out and so that's a reflection of Aaron Rodgers. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think that's how this worked. I think plain and simply the Packers were not going to play Marquez Valdes-Scantling what he wanted money wise. So this is something that they are going to have to figure out what to do on that front. But the fact that they're not the only ones out there does mean an increase in competition, but it also means that there is at least some potential that these people, these players are out there, they're available. And I think Green Bay is going to make a play for them such that they are available. We don't know the degree to which they are available, but I am very confident in saying Green Bay has been making calls. They have been trying to get something together. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but they are working to do it. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar ever. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, covered in 100% chocolate with incredible flavors. And you have to act quickly because some of these flavors, they sell out. They sell out because they're that good. They're that good. The puffs, some of those puff flavors, they sell out because we're talking about protein infused marshmallow. Come on, protein infused marshmallow. All Built Bars covered in 100% chocolate, yet high in protein, high in fiber, low in net carbs, low in sugar. How do they do it? I'm not a scientist. I don't know, but I personally think it's magic. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. Make sure you're following Locked On NFL, which is Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. All right, let's get to our mock draft Monday. So the guys over at Locked On NFL Draft, or in this case, just our buddy Eric Crocker, put together a mock draft. They had Jahan Dotson at 22 and Boye Mafe at 28. Aside from the receiver in question, because I do not think the Packers are going to be in play at all for Jahan Dotson. I don't think he's going to even be on their board. Receiver edge makes a lot of sense to me because I think they have two starting tackles, and I mean two starting long-term tackles. And I don't think you use a first-round pick unless you think David Bakhtiari is just washed. And I don't think the Packers believe that. They just signed him to the contract. I know this ACL recovery was a little bit scary, but it's not like he's Andrew Whitworth and he's graying on the sides and he's close to, hanging it up. I just don't see that for him. So I know offensive tackle has been a popular pick. I just don't see that at this stage. I floated this out there. What if the Packers trade 28 and 92, so a first and a third for DK Metcalf, and then they trade 22 and both their fourth round picks, to 18 to get George Karlaftis, the edge rusher, and you bolster those two spots in a major way, one through the draft, one through trade. And then on day 2, you get Sean Ryan, the interior offensive lineman from UCLA. He played tackle at UCLA, but I think he's a guard in the NFL. I think he could be a really good guard. And then Jaylen Tolbert, the South Alabama receiver, at 59. Don't let the school fool you. This kid can play. I think the plan for Green Bay, if they had all of their options available to them, if they got to pick, hey, this is what we'd really like to do, I think they would like to trade for a receiver, a proven veteran receiver, and then pick a day 2 guy. And I think they'd like to get a premium upgrade on the edge. Not just an upgrade from, say, Preston Smith, but to make this team deep and to give them the sort of bevy of pass rushers that could really make them potent, even if they're going to just play 4 or 5-man fronts. I think that is their goal. And then you have these nice safety rails on day 2 because you have the pair of seconds where you could trade one or you can trade a third and still feel like you're getting good Tate-Do value because you can still get a Jaylen Tolbert or a Sean Ryan, both of whom I think are quality NFL players potentially. And for the Packers, guys who could come in right away and compete to start, given the Packers personnel, that this makes a lot of sense. I think receiver and edge early, whether it's a trade, whether it's a pick. I don't think, and I know people are having a lot of fun, I don't think they're going to take 2 receivers in the first. I think 22 is going to be a receiver or draft capital used on a receiver, and I think 28 is going to be a pass rusher. If it's not Mafe, who's a little bit older, maybe it's the kid from Penn State, both of whom are actually a little bit older, but maybe that means they're more ready to compete. I think Mafe's a little bit less ready to compete right now. He's an upside play, but he's 24-year-old rookie. So how do you balance that? I think that's a difficult line to walk. as of this moment, what day is it? It is March 28th as of you listening to this. So we're about a month from the draft. My official position at this time is going to be a first-round pick allocated to a receiver, whether that's trade or draft, and another first-round pick allocated to edge rusher, and then probably another receiver on day 2, and you go from there. Because you want to get one cheap, young rookie receiver. I think that would be the goal. And I think you'd have a really good draft. If that's how that played out, I think you'd have a really good draft. I think that would be a really good position for Green Bay to be in. You know, it's not as sexy as going Treylon Burks, Chris Olave, or flip them if you want. It's not as sexy as trading up for Drake London. It's just not. Unless you get the big fish. Unless you get the big fish receiver. Unless you get DK or AJ Brown. Those are the two guys that I would have my sights focused on if I were the Packers, because I think those are the teams that would actually trade them their players. I don't think Deebo would go to Green Bay. I just don't think that that's a realistic opportunity. I don't think John Lynch would do it. I don't think Kyle Shanahan would do it. But I do think Green Bay is probably calling about it. And they're probably like, will you trade us Aaron Rodgers? No. Okay, bye. Click. That's how that conversation goes. Click. Yeah, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry. Deebo would be cool. Obviously, he'd be great. Great with Aaron Rodgers. But it's not a thing that's going to happen. So I don't want to waste any time on it. Let's finish up here talking about Marquez Valdes-Scantling going to Kansas City, how it affects this team and how it affects their search for that next receiver, whether it's in the draft or elsewhere. But before we do, let's talk about our friends over at Athletic Greens. Our next partner is a product that I use every day. And I'm on vacation right now. I'm in Florida with my family. And I brought Athletic Greens with me because that's how better I feel when I take it. I've been having issues with my stomach. And by taking Athletic Greens, it has helped my gut health, helped my overall health. If you're watching me on YouTube, you may not be able to tell because I'm a little pale right now. The light is not helping. I don't have my normal light set up here, but my skin feels better. Athletic Greens is 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole-sourced food superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. These things are fuel for your body, and your body it's your car before you even get in your car. So you're going to put fuel in it. You're not going to put mud in your car. It's not going to go. And the great thing about Athletic Greens is it fits so many kinds of lifestyles. If you're the super healthy person, if you're keto or paleo or vegan or dairy-free or gluten-free, they're in it for you. It will help you recover if you're the kind of person that likes to work out a lot. If you're just the kind of person who wants to have a little bit more health in their diet, just wants a little bit more recovery, a little bit less soreness. You want to feel a little bit better about where your stomach is. I know a lot of people who have stress, who are dealing with stomach problems, who don't eat right and drink a lot of coffee. And sometimes that's me. Athletic Greens can help you get back on track. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. I have the travel packs on vacation. They are wonderful. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NFL network to find that offer. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. Now go make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. So while we were taking a bit of a break last week, we took Friday off, Marquez Valdes-Scantling signed with the Kansas City Chiefs. And for a lot of money, he got a lot of money, and good for him, he got the bag. Green Bay was never going to pay what Kansas City ultimately offered him. And you know, it's not really the sort of $10 million APY that it seemed like it was, but that's okay. That's okay. I don't think Green Bay was going to go much above 7. They weren't going to go much above 1 year. The Saints apparently had an offer reportedly for 2 years. The Chiefs went to 3, and he's now their number one receiver, kind of. I mean, we just look at salary. Now, I live in the glassiest of houses right now covering the Packers, so I cannot throw stones because the Packers are in the same boat. Their number one receiver is Allen Lazard. Maybe Randall Cobb, Aaron Jones. Honestly, Aaron Jones might be the answer. If the Packers went into the season with this group, Aaron Jones might lead the team in targets. And I think there's a lot of things to say about how this team can adapt to a Devontae Adams-less world. We're going to say a lot of them over the course of the next few weeks and months until there are some additions that are made here. But losing Marquez Valdes-Scantling, we can't underestimate that impact, okay? Because his ability to stretch the field was vital to the geometry of this offense working. So I think that makes, when we talk about Packers types, it makes those types even more important because we have to be looking at speed. The Packers have always prized speed at the receiver position and guys that they have drafted. And it's going to be even more important for the Packers in this year's draft to find that speed. Even if you can get a DK Metcalf or an AJ Brown. AJ Brown is someone who you want to work underneath. Yes, he has the speed to take the top off the defense. Yes, he has the speed to take a slant for 60 or 80. But you want someone clearing out space. You want someone who can go over the top and can provide for you that room. Bring the safety with you, and now AJ Brown has room to clear and create a big play. Plenty of green grass to work with. The Packers, they want big, they want fast. And so I wrote about this for the Leap last week. I'm not going to give away all my state secrets, but among the names that you have probably heard of, like amongst guys who are probably going to get drafted, players who cleanly fit or so far have not tested themselves out of fitting with what Green Bay tends to prefer at receiver. So 6 feet or taller, generally 190 or more. Generally, they'd prefer 200. A 4.5 something, anything under 4.6 works. And then a 3-cone, around 7.1. Anything above that, you're getting crazy. And certainly anything below that, you're in good shape. So among the players who have tested, guys who have hit that threshold and are likely to be drafted, George Pickens from Georgia, Christian Watson from North Dakota State, Jaylen Tolbert from South Alabama, I mentioned him, Braylon Sanders from Ole Miss, Velus Jones from Tennessee. That's the list. Some other guys who are borderline, Isaiah Weston, Kevin Austin Jr., Eric Ezukanma. I always have to be careful with that name. And then Romeo Doubs from Nevada hasn't tested. Drake London from USC hasn't tested. They could get on the list. Then there's some borderline players. Chris Olave, everyone's favorite. John Mechie from Alabama. Kyle Phillips from UCLA. Bo Melton from Rutgers. Danny Gray from SNU. Jalen Naylor from Michigan State. Alec Pierce from Cincinnati. All of those borderline players, except Mechie, who hasn't tested, hit the RAS threshold. Packers want certainly above an 8, we think. Now, whether or not they actually use relative athletic score is not important. I don't care about it. It would be silly to even argue about it. We know that they have these athletic molds. They have said on the record they have these athletic molds. And Brian Gutekunst said that they go back to Ron Wolf. They've had them forever and ever until the ages of ages. So we know that these things exist. Find the guys with speed. That's why people want Chris Olave so much. 4.3 speed, can take the top off and win vertically. George Pickens can take the top off and win vertically. George Pickens is the perfect number 2 in this offense because he can win underneath with his big body and then he can go get it down the field. I think he has number 1 receiver potential, but ideally you'd use him with another guy. George Pickens would be a great compliment to someone like Tyler Lockett. He would be a great compliment to someone like AJ Brown. He'd be a great compliment to someone like Deebo Samuel, even though that's not going to happen. And he'd be a great compliment to someone like DK Metcalf. But he'd also be a good compliment to someone like Chris Olave. Be a good compliment to someone like Drake London. We've talked about on the show finding complementary pieces when possible. If you can do that, do that. Now, you don't want to worry too much about it because you want to find the best players. The fit will figure itself out. So again, that's not a super long list. And among likely top 100 picks, among just likely top 100 picks, Drake London, who hasn't tested, George Pickens, Christian Watson, Jaylen Tolbert. Those are the for sure qualifiers. And the borderline players, Chris Olave, John Mechie, who hasn't tested because of the torn ACL. Kyle Phillips is small, slow, and underweight, so he's probably out. Bo Melton, maybe going to sneak into the top 100. I doubt it. He's underweight and under height, so not a long list. Not a long list. All the more reason to go get yourself someone in the trade market. We'll see if Green Bay is actually willing to do that. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. So we will see you back here tomorrow. Plenty more to get to. Maybe there's a trade. We'll see. I'm not gonna bank on it, but maybe might could happen. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to hit us up on the Locked On Packers fan hotline, you can do that, 920-341-3775 to stay Locked On Packers.